Okay, we're live. Good evening, everyone. I am Nancy Sullivan.
I don't think Steve's up yet, Nancy.
No, he's not, but I thought we'd start.
I know, I just asked him to turn on the live stream so that people would know we were here.
Okay. Steve seemed to feel that he was going to get on in 2 minutes for real. But let's see. So we are waiting for Steve Altieri, the superintendent of the Larchmont-Mamaroneck Garbage Commission, Joint Garbage Disposal Commission, to join us. And he's been having some technical difficulties getting into the Zoom. So we're going to give him another minute and see if he can join us. Because he is an integral part of this presentation.
Who's going to start laughing? Because this is.
I think Bubba is.
I know.
Yeah, Bubba's the one who's down there. He's making me giggle.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say it'd be fun if everybody just kind of went, you know.
Exactly. I was thinking the same exact thing, Bubba.
That's perfect.
We just sit here for 30 minutes frozen.
So please stand by, everyone. We're waiting for Steve Altieri to join us.
So what did the snail say when he got on the turtle's back?
What?
Whee! Thank you.
Thank you, Bubba.
All right.
All right, there we go.
Steve, can you adjust the camera?
Yeah, I'm going to just work.
Face?
Here. I'll adjust the camera. Can I adjust this down? Oh, that's terrible. Push this down. This video go down. Okay, I am very, very sorry. I love technology.
You're good to go now, though, everyone?
I am good to go.
Okay. So good evening, everyone. I'm Nancy Seligson. I'm the supervisor of the town of Mamaroneck. And I am also a commissioner of the Larchmont-Mamaroneck Joint Garbage Disposal Commission. And the other commissioner is the Village of Larchmont Mayor Lorraine Walsh. And Steve Altieri is the superintendent of the commission. We're gathered in a joint meeting of the town board and the Village of Larchmont board to hold a public hearing tonight on the proposed change to the solid waste laws in each municipality. I'm going to ask for on the town board if there is a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Lorraine, you're muted.
For the village board, I seek a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The Larchmont-Mamaroneck Joint Garbage Commission was founded or created in 1938 by an act of the New York State Legislature, and it was to allow the two municipalities jointly to construct and maintain an incinerator disposal plant for refuse and garbage. Since 1938, of course, there have been many changes to the commission, including the decommissioning of that incinerator, the collection of refuse and garbage, so the collection, not just the incineration of it, the separation and collection of recycling material, and more. But today, the commission employs 13 staff. It provides all garbage services to the residents of the village of Larchmont and the residents of the unincorporated area of the the town of Mamaroneck. If you live in the village of Mamaroneck, you are not served by the Joint Garbage Commission. In the town of Mamaroneck, the cost for garbage services is about $637 a year if you have an average assessed house of $1,257,000. So both the village of Larchmont and the town of Mamaroneck have laws that pertain to solid waste, including where to pick it up and how to pick trash picked up. Any change to a municipal law requires a public hearing. And since both the town and the village are considering the same change to the same garbage commission, the same change in laws that would affect the same garbage commission, we decided to hold a joint public hearing. And that's why we're all here together tonight. Really, I think for the first time that I can remember having a joint public hearing. And I'm going to hand it over to Mayor Walsh, who's going to explain how we're going to operate the public hearing tonight.
Sure, thank you. So we have before us, as Supervisor Seligson stated, a proposed local law to change the collection of trash to curbside. Steve Altieri, who in his role tonight as Superintendent of the Sanitation Commission, is going to be making a presentation to explain the law, explain a little bit about the commission's workings and how this change will affect operations, costs, and the future collection operation of, or potential future of the collection operation of the Sanitation Commission. After Superintendent Altieri's presentation, both the town and village board members will take some time to discuss the law, discuss the presentation, and ask any questions either of each other or of Mr. Altieri that we may have. And then we're going to open up for public comment. If you would like to make a public comment on this Zoom meeting, you're going to raise your virtual hand. And what you can do for that is you go to the little space beside your, you go to your, your screen, your Zoom screen, and you'll find a space where you can raise your hand. Town employee Lindsay Luft, is she still on here?
Yeah, she's here.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Is going to be monitoring the hand raising, and she will put you on and unmute you when it is your turn to speak. When you do come on to speak, please state your name. I know sometimes the names that pop up on these Zooms are not the speaker's name, so just state your name and try to limit your comments to 2 minutes so that we can accommodate all those who wish to speak. If you don't wish to speak or there's not enough time, you can also, or you think of something later, you can also submit written comments. I would suggest that your written comments go to your respective municipalities' boards. Since these local laws have to be considered and adopted separately by the town and village boards, if you have comments and you're a village resident, you should write to the village board. Likewise, if you're a resident of the unincorporated town of Mamaroneck. I also wanted to say that this is a public hearing, the first public hearing on this proposed local law. We will not be taking a vote to approve this law tonight. Tonight is an opportunity for us to discuss the law, hear from the public, and consider options. So I think with that said, we can ask Mr. Altieri to start his presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mayor.
Mhm.
I'm going to share my screen. And here we go. Okay, hopefully you can all see that. And I will All right, we'll get going here. Okay, so this evening, the conversation is about a change in the sanitation services to go from back door inside of the home to go to curbside garbage collection. So right now, the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont each have in their individual codes solid waste laws. They are virtually identical to one another with incredibly minor differences. And it's been that way for a very long time, especially as the two communities moved into collection vis-a-vis the commission, and as the laws were amended to account for recycling and all of the different changes that have gone on in recycling since the late 1970s, when the town and village started collecting newspaper as a recycled material. So the amendment is to change the section of the town code relating to collection procedures to require residents to set their garbage out at the curb for collection. Included in the amendment is a proposal that would also provide an exemption for curbside garbage for those residents that are eligible over the age of 70. Procedurally, the resident would make application to the commission for the exemption, and then once that exemption is granted, the commission will establish a procedure for the collection of the homes that are exempted. At this point, it's undecided yet whether we would use the individual routes for that collection or whether or not we would establish a small crew to collect waste from the exempted homes. So let's go over what happens now. As you can see, the vast majority of materials collected from the residents are collected at curbside. We do collect household garbage at the back and side of the home. However, the commission collects bulk waste, recycling, and organic material all at curbside. So there has been discussion about canisters being left at the curb and other collection receptacles, but right now we're seeing some of that now, and most material is collected at the curb. So why are we going to consider this now? Believe it or not, there are an increasing number of residents in the town and the village that do bring their garbage to the curb. Some have done it habitually and have never left their material at the back of the home. There are some residents that would prefer not to have our employees down their driveways or at the rear of the home, and would just prefer that we collect it at the curb and they will take care of moving the receptacle to the rear of their home. Right now in Westchester, there are 26 municipalities out of the 43 that do have curbside collection for household garbage. And as I mentioned before, it is the standard for recycling, bulk waste, and organic waste in the town and village. Curbside garbage collection, I'll discuss this in a little bit, is more efficient and requires less staff, and therefore will result in savings. And we'll talk about that in just a moment. We'll also talk about a safer workplace for our employees and why that is important. Now, some have commented that in this change that commission employees would lose their jobs because of the reduction in staff. That is incorrect. Right now, based on our current staffing and the vacant positions that exist, no commission employee will lose their job with this change. It is all being done via attrition. And again, something else we'll talk about later is that curbside garbage collection allows us to consider future savings, further savings rather, and also different by employing different methods for the collection of garbage and recycling. So let's talk about the efficiency of it. With curbside garbage collection, we would reduce the staff from 3 employees on a truck to 4 employees rather to 3 employees. That gives us a lot more flexibility in staffing of refuse collection. And I want to point to what we had to do with the COVID pandemic as a good example. Here we were with a situation where we wanted to make sure that the staff was reasonably separated and and we reduce the likelihood that they would become ill on the job, and we would face either changes in service or reductions in service because of the pandemic. So what we did was we converted our crews to two-man crews on 2 trucks. However, when you work with 3 men on a truck, you can have 1 man in the cab, 2 on either side of the rear of the truck as they ride now. There's good separation of the employees. So that worked very well. So we know we can work with just 3 men on a truck with curbside garbage collection, and it's done efficiently. We do unfortunately have times where we will miss a collection. And oftentimes that's because the collection personnel just forgets to go to the rear of a certain home. Or if we move staff from one route to the other, they don't necessarily understand the nuances of the route and may effectively miss homes for that reason. And that does happen. We have to move staff around for vacation purposes to meet the needs of those that are ill or injured and absent from work. We've done the calculation on the savings and salary and fringe benefits, and it's estimated to be between $240,000 and $280,000. That is not an insignificant number if you think of the fact that the net commission budget's only $3.4 million. So a savings of close to $300,000 is substantial and cannot be ignored in this process. So let's talk about the safer workplace. If you look on the OSHA list of most dangerous employees, and this is always a surprise to me, those that collect refuse and recycling, it is considered one of the 5 most dangerous professions in the United States. And the most common injuries in refuse collection are lifting and slips, trips, and falls. The slips, trips, and falls just become more prevalent, and the potential is greater when you have employees that have to go down steep driveways that may have snow on them. Much of the housing stock in Larchmont and Mamaroneck is older. So some of the stairwells that go up to the back of a home are made of stone. It can be uneven. So think about the process that the employee now walks up these stairs, loads the garbage into a large can, and then has to carry that can out to the truck. And it's not unusual for them to have to lift anywhere from 100 to 150 to even 200 pounds of garbage and get it out to the street to put into the truck. The workers' compensation insurance industry recognizes the danger of refuse and recycling collection, and so it is one of the highest manual rates for workers' compensation insurance. So for the commission, it is a very expensive item. At its peak, the commission was paying close to $500,000 for workers' compensation insurance. We have, through training and other methods, reduced that insurance. However, it's still going to be an expensive item for the commission. And when your experience with injuries grows, so does the premium. And with curbside garbage collection, we limit the exposure to injuries to our employees. So in the future, why should we consider curbside garbage collection? If some of you were out and about in the town and the village about 2 weeks ago, you noticed a very large white garbage truck going up and down the street. We actually experimented with an automated refuse collection truck. There are several communities in Westchester County that are using this type of vehicle with great success. The automated vehicle just pulls up to the house, tips the can up into the truck. It's a very clean operation. It allows us to actually move the can a little farther back onto the driveway if we have to. And it is an even safer environment for the employee because they rarely, if ever, have to get out of the truck. It also would allow us, depending on other collections that we are considering, further reduce staffing through attrition. Sustainability is a big issue in both of our communities as we have active environmental committees. The primary goal is always to reduce the amount of waste that we process as garbage. Last year, the commission collected and processed close to 20,000 tons of material. Of that total, over 60% of it was recycled, and that's one of the higher percentages in Westchester County. It's actually one of the top 5 percentages of recycling material in Westchester County. With curbside garbage collection, we are able to consider additional recycling programs. Right now, we are very actively accepting food waste at the Maxwell Avenue facility. Westchester County has just entered into an agreement with Suburban Carting for the acceptance of food waste. And so the commission will, in the next month or so, move to a process where we will take the food waste at the Maxwell Avenue depot and transport it to Suburban Carting at substantial savings from our current per ton tipping fee. So if we were to move to a curbside collection process, it gives us the greater opportunity to consider collecting food waste at the curb. And for a community like Larchmont and Mamaroneck that already has a high percentage of recycling, we're anticipating a high participation rate for the food waste should we go to curbside collection of the food waste. So let's talk about the transition should the two boards decide to move in this direction. I think everyone understands that change is a challenge, and we've addressed a couple of ways of moving to that change with minimal interruption to the service and minimal annoyance, if you will, to the residents. First, we do have the senior citizen exemption that will accommodate eligible seniors that are unable to bring their garbage to the curb. But secondly, the commission several years ago began the sale of various sizes of receptacles for garbage and recycling. The cans that we offer come in 30, 42, 48, 64, and 96 gallon sizes. The reason for mentioning this now is we have a small 30-gallon container, which is on wheels and is really quite easy to move to the curb. So as opposed to the standard garbage can that is a pain in the neck to move, it has to be dragged up the driveway or dragged across the path. This is on wheels, and at the size of 30 gallons is light and easy to transport. So if you consider those older residents that may be living in the community still, it's not that difficult to bring your garbage to the curb. However, we are also offering the exemption as well. So we can make the transition relatively smooth to this change should it be decided. That's really the end of the presentation, and I can take questions now, or we can take questions as the comments come in.
Lorraine, you're muted.
We're going to open it up to boards of the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont for them to get comments now or ask any questions, Steve, and then we'll open it up to the public.
That's fine.
So I guess we can, the most efficient way might be to just anyone who has a question from either board, or a comment or something to share, pipe in now, can unmute yourselves and jump on in. I would just like to say that prior to becoming a member of the village board as a trustee, I didn't even know that back door, side door pickup was an option. Nobody ever told me. My whole street puts their trash out to the curb. I live right off Chatsworth Avenue, and almost everyone I see on Chatsworth Avenue also puts their trash to the curb. So 22 years we've been bringing it out 3 nights a week. And really, it's not difficult when the cans generally do not sit out all day long. People bring it out in the evening, and for the most part, they get brought back up to the head of the driveway the next day. The one thing I can say about moving to curbside pickup is that it does give the commission the flexibility to explore lots of new and innovative and sustainable ways to collect trash, recyclables, and organic waste. And without that change, some of those options for progressive action get taken off the table. So I think we should, keep that in our minds as a consideration, is that this has ramifications further down the road for additional improvements to the efficiency of the system and the scope of the system. Now I'm going to be quiet.
So Steve, since this program has been enacted, are we finding that the workers are safer? And how's the morale down there? Anybody gotten injured, or is all of that a lot less, saving on workers' compensation and so on?
Yeah, there is no question that since we actually have had about a year and a half good experience, but it has gotten that much better because now the employees are basically riding with the truck, just stepping off the truck when they have to collect the material and putting it into the truck. The other thing that makes it simpler is that we have on the back of our rear load trucks, we operate these tippers. So where a can is exceptionally heavy, the sanitation man now has the option of connecting the can to the tipper and let the tipper do all the work instead of the employee doing all the work. So the short answer is yes, it has been much safer. The employees do not have an issue with curbside collection. I think they actually prefer it.
And how much time do you think they're saving from the old way of going back door to curbside on the route?
So typically, the sanitation men have, they are a different breed of worker. They've always worked in an environment where they do not take coffee breaks or lunch breaks. And they all have what's called the incentive: finish your route, finish helping other routes, and then you can go home. So we have reduced the amount of time that it takes. It depends on the day. There are some days when they'll finish their routes in 3 to 4 hours. Recycling is always the longest of their days. And when they're collecting organic, those days can run 5.5 to 6 hours without breaks. But the real advantage is that we can work with less staff on a truck. So the plan is that we would have 5 collection crews, each with 3 people on the crew. That would leave 3, let's call them floater employees, but that would cover things like vacation coverage. Just as an example, based on the collective bargaining agreement, we need to cover about 330 vacation days a year. So now with these additional staff or floater staff, we can move them into slots to collect the material. And because it's at the curb, they don't necessarily have to know all the nuances of the route. As I mentioned earlier, everything's at the curb. They don't have to know that, Mr. and Mrs. Jones have their garbage behind the home, in the shed, under the deck, or wherever it may be. They move along at the curb and collect the material.
Thank you.
I had a few comments. A number of the responses we've received were concerned about getting their garbage to the curb in snow and ice. And I just want to point out that with the current regulations, the sanitation men aren't supposed to be getting your garbage if the driveway is not cleared of snow and ice. So it's really not fair to expect them to walk down a driveway that you don't feel comfortable walking down. I'm a recent convert to the sanitation garbage cans, and I can attest they are easy to wheel, and you don't have to worry about the lid coming off, my garage doesn't smell like garbage in the summer and so I really think they're great. And I hope people realize what a bargain for $637 a year, the level of service you're currently getting, I think is astounding. I don't think you could come close to getting that through the private sector. I mean, the amount of things we're picking up, your bulk waste, your organic waste, garbage twice a week, recycling every week, it's really above and beyond. I think you're getting a great value for that.
Steve, I have a question. Is there I'm concerned about disabled residents. Is there some way we can add to the exemption for residents with disabilities, physical disabilities?
We'd have to evaluate how we would, the communities that I investigated that had exemption criteria, excuse me, only made it for senior citizens. There can be difficulty in evaluating criteria for those with disabilities. So we'd have to, we'd have to look into that a little further. I must admit I have some hesitancy with it, but we could do some more homework.
I think that would be good.
Steve, can I ask a question related to something down the road? And that is, if we go to those trucks that pick up the refuse at the curb, the automatic trucks, can there be an exemption at that point, or is everybody then going to be required to bring their refuse to the curb?
Well, that's a chicken and egg question. I think if there was the reason that we brought in the demonstration vehicle and tested it was because the two boards and the commission were considering going to curbside. So the thought was, if we go to curbside collection, then that would give us more reason to look at the automated truck.
Okay.
Sabrina, was your question more, even if we went to curbside collection now, and then down the road, we started using the automated trucks, could the seniors with exemptions continue to have exemptions?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. The answer is yes. I'm sorry. The answer to that question is yes.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Lorraine.
Thank you, Lorraine.
You're welcome.
Lorraine, it speaks Sabrina.
The food waste program that we're talking about putting on the curb. No issues with animals. I mean, a lot of animals now where I am.
Well,
No problems.
The food waste programs that exist now, the one that we have been following the closest is the one in the village of Scarsdale. They have about 1,100 residents registered for food waste collection. On average, the village will tell you that they collect food waste once a week. They will, on average, collect from 400 homes. They have not experienced a problem with raccoons or any other rodent getting to the garbage. The containers have well, the food waste container that we have been looking at actually has a locking lid. It's actually a container that's being used in the city of New York right now. It's instead of a 6-gallon container that people currently have in their food waste kit, we've looked at a 13-gallon container, and it actually has a latch on it that you can seal it. And even when you knock it over, it doesn't seem to open up. Very quick side story. We had a resident show up at the yard about 3 weeks ago, and she pulled out this, she's a new resident, pulled out this container, and the foreman and I got all excited and said, wait a minute, what container is this? And sure enough, it is a food waste container that is manufactured by the same firm we're buying our garbage containers from. So they look pretty solid. And we have not seen a lot of garbage containers at the curb tipped over. To be honest, I don't know if we've seen any tipped over. I don't know, maybe the raccoons don't like to work in the public eye. I'm not sure why. So we don't see it as a problem.
With your attrition program, not the program, but the attrition that's going to take place amongst the older sanitation workers, how many are you expecting to leave in the next year and a half or two?
Well, we actually have one position in the commission that we did not fill. It's been vacant for about a year. And then we have a position that will open up in December. We have a retirement that will be effective at the end of December. And so those would be the two positions that we would reduce. And so in the next year, I'm not sure how many more would retire. But that's actually, you raise another point. You know, we have the age of the commission employees is getting up there, and we now have a number of employees in their 50s that are doing this work, and they're doing it quite well. But I can't tell you the toll that this takes. If you just assume that they will walk an average of 5 or 6 miles a day on their route, and I should be in such good condition, and they are collecting this waste. So, we've talked about the injuries and all that goes with it, but you have to look at the age factor as well.
Steve, as regards the workers' compensation, does workers' compensation, when they're calculating our rates, also consider whether or not we have curbside versus backdoor pickup in the garbage collection?
Yes, we actually spoke to our carrier just recently when we started to put the presentation together, and they are actually looking at the premium again, and they said, let us know whether you make this decision. So yes, the work environment is clearly one of the criteria for underwriting a premium.
And was workers' compensation cost included in your personnel and benefit cost reduction?
Yes, but I did not, since they have not given us a solid number on what the additional increase might be, I did not include it in the number that's in my presentation.
You did not. Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to mention the sustainability factor again. We're all being asked to make our communities more sustainable in every sense of the word. And that includes reducing the amount of waste that we produce. And that helps us because it is reduce our costs. In trying to do that, though, the number one way to do that is to remove the food waste from the waste stream. It is the heaviest part of the waste stream because it's so liquid and water is very heavy. It also is the least productive when it goes up to the trash to energy plant because burning water is not an efficient thing to do. So I know those who've participated in the food waste recycling program and bringing their food waste to the Maxwell Avenue Recycling Center notice that your waste decreases by more than half. I mean, you really reduce the amount of waste you create. So, excuse me. So by bringing waste to the curb, it does give us the opportunity to explore more ways of becoming more sustainable in reducing the amount of waste that we all produce and the way we collect it. And it would give us the opportunity to explore the food waste pickup. Right now, people have to bring it over to Maxwell Avenue, and we do believe that if it was picked up, there'd be a very large increase in participation in the program. So, the solid waste is always changing. It's an area that people are always trying to improve, reduce, increase recycling. And this really is an advancement for the community to move forward and try and improve that service.
And the food waste itself will be picked up once a week?
If we went to food waste collection, the two communities that we've been following are Scarsdale. Rice City's doing it on a test basis. We're collecting it once a week.
Thank you.
Any other questions from board members? Okay, well, why don't we open it up to the public now? And we'd like, as Lorraine asked, we'd like people to raise their hand, and Lindsay Luff, who is an assistant to the administrator in the town, will recognize people and allow you into the Zoom meeting so you can ask your questions or make your comments. And we'd like to remind everyone, if you could please keep it to 2 minutes, that would be really helpful. And don't worry that this is your only chance to comment. You are welcome to email us, write us a letter, call us, however you need to communicate your comments. As of this point, we don't know whether we're going to continue this public hearing in this format, but certainly I think we can agree that you're welcome to provide comments till the end of the week at this point.
Certainly. Mhm.
Okay, so Lindsay, can you tell us about how many people have signed up to speak?
Yes, we currently have 5 hand raised.
Oh, okay. Surprising. I thought you were going to say 500.
The first is Wendy Weinstein Carp.
Okay. Wendy, please join us.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, and I also wanted to let you know that we are actually 3 people here because we wanted to comment. We thought it might be helpful to comment sequentially. So although you think there are 5, there are 7 because we have 3 here together, socially distanced. So my name is Wendy Weinstein, and just wanted to say good evening to all, some of my former MHS classmates, Peter, Jeff. And thank you all for the work that you do for the town of Mamaroneck and the village of Larchmont. It is very much appreciated, by everybody. The remarks that I make now have been emailed to the town and the village clerks and the mayor and the supervisor for further review and to be entered into the record, if that is helpful. Just to get right to the point, as you must know, there is significant disagreement with the proposed law to eliminate the highly valued side back of the house trash collection. More than 315 residents have signed a petition in a very short time and commented therein, opposing the elimination of the trash collection service. And more than 500 additional residents have commented on social media threads, of which I'm sure you are aware. Many sent me messages and also reported that they called the town offices and spoke to Superintendent Altieri directly, as did I. Residents think maintaining the side back option makes sense for 3 primary reasons. First and foremost, it keeps more bins off the streets and improves our streetscapes. Larchmont and Mamaroneck is a beautiful community. I don't have to tell anyone that. And it is a shame to have bins often overturned, often spanning the sidewalks, often blowing around, often with pieces of escaped trash lining the streetscape for several days a week. This is just a fact. And I'm not sure what streets other people live on, but many, hundreds of people say the same thing. Many residents cannot get back from work in time to pick up their bins, so they're left out all day. Many residents put their bins out the day before. Sometimes recycling is not picked up on that second pass until 4 p.m. So we've got receptacles on our streets much of the day, much of the midweek. Whatever can be done to mitigate this issue is deemed highly worthwhile by the residents for aesthetic and environmental reasons. It's an environmental issue as well. Reason number 2, the indicated tax savings, as told to me, of $200,000 when I spoke to Superintendent Altieri, the number seems to move around a little bit, or what was indicated as something like $10 per resident per year, hardly seems worth the sacrifice of a service that is so highly valued by residents. Further, it was indicated that the money saved would not be returned to taxpayers for the loss of the service. And so taxpayers see that as unfair. We think by keeping side back and simultaneously taking a more comprehensive look at trash collection, savings could be potentially achieved in other ways. There are many options which experts can speak far better to than us, but things we hear about are potentially reducing landfill collection to 1 time per week. My personal experience, when you go to composting, you minimize your landfill trash. There's things that have been thrown around such as dual compartment trucks, single trip pickup, and other modifications. Fees could be levied for surplus trash or citations for lingering bins. We could look for savings in completely other areas. We don't have to save here just to modify our service here, is what many feel. And then, as has already been cited, and clearly Superintendent Altieri is doing this, look to other communities. Scarsdale has undergone a comprehensive rethink of their trash collection and published for public view a 30-page report on how they modified their service, which keeps side back pickup twice weekly. It also includes food scrap and other things which have been already mentioned, and David Feldman will speak to after me. The third primary reason that many residents feel that side back should be maintained is because it is a highly valued service, one that helps justify the very high taxation rates that we endure. Residents point to property values, which are enhanced by services. And Mr. Altieri himself said in 2018 that when they were considering a variety of service changes, that side back should not be eliminated, as at this time, most of the community likes our backdoor collection pickup. And that is true and still is true today. And then before I just turn it over to David, I have lived here my whole life, as many of you have. And from time to time, I've dipped into public service when I see opportunities, and I've stepped in to help upgrade how we live, be it 15 years ago when some of us started Bark for the Park to replace lost trees in parks, or more than 10 years ago when I wanted to start a local farmers market. The resistance to a new idea like that was very substantial. And we were told this cannot happen and will not happen. But we explored, we persisted, and we tried to think out of the box. And indeed, we launched the Larchmont Farmers Market by working through the roadblocks. And now we have one of the most successful farmers markets in Westchester with over 1,500 residents visiting each week. And all the connection, community, and healthy eating it brings, which no one could envision at that time. So I would now say that I see the same game-changing opportunity for our town and village. Opportunity to make our streetscapes more beautiful. This is very important to the hundreds of people who have responded. It's a beautiful town. We don't want trash all over the place. A lot of people think this, although I appreciate all the comments that have been made to this point. I think we should rethink that. We should rethink trash and encourage residents to compost, recycle, consume less, and be more forward thinking. With all the recent improvements in Mamaroneck, and I applaud all in Larchmont who've achieved these things, improvements to the avenue, to the harbor, Larchmont Constitution Park and Flint Park, we have the opportunity now to add and modify and make it better as pertains to trash collection, not to cut and eviscerate the program and make it worse, which would happen if side back pickup is eliminated. If now is the time to change trash laws, let's change and up level by leaving a valuable service in place, which Scarsdale did when they came out of their rethink process, updating to a more comprehensive set of trash collection regulations that point everyone towards the sustainable and beautiful community that we want to be. I'm now going to pass it over to David Feldman, and then Christine Manzi will speak after. And I just only met these neighbors through this initiative, so I guess to say it's fair to say that these are my new trashy neighbors. So I'm passing it over to David Feldman, my trashy neighbor.
Right, thank you. Hi.
Wendy, I just want to thank you for your comments, but I just want to remind everyone that we have some board members have another meeting to get to. So if you can try to, I know you have well-developed comments here, but if you can distill them down and try to keep to the time frame so everybody gets a chance to speak.
The good thing was we thought there was going to be 500 speakers, as you mentioned. There's
Well,
only 7.
I didn't. That was just Nancy's comment. So.
Okay. All right. This is David.
It was a
Feldman.
joke.
Yeah.
I'll try to be brief. So I've lived in Larchmont for about 20 years in different parts, and it's actually important to note. Like someone else who mentioned tonight, I spent my first 12 years living in the unincorporated part of Larchmont, and then the last 8 in the village. And the first 12 years, frankly, I was unaware of the back and side pickup available through the commission. And in fact, one of the major complaints I had, not the reason I moved, but one of the major complaints I had in that area where I used to live was the amount of garbage that would be swirling around, knocked down, and throughout my property in that area was markedly less once I moved into the village. And I would tell you right now, when we're living in this COVID part-time environment, I would say it's a common point of discussion among my neighbors about how the streets have become an obstacle course with garbage cans, garbage lids, garbage strewn throughout the streets. And so I think, and the fact is that most people weren't aware that this permanent change was going about. And I would tell you, the word on the street is there's a fair amount of complaining about how this service, at least in the village where I live, is being considered to be removed. The other thing I would mention is this. I'm now living in my third home in Larchmont, and I love Larchmont and don't see myself leaving at any time. But in the most recent iteration of my time in Larchmont, when I was being brought around by a real estate broker, the real estate broker, a prominent real estate broker in Larchmont, highlighted as one of the things about the services that they were highlighting in this town was the fact that we have this side of the house garbage pickup. And the reality is, somebody noted, and I think Mr. Altieri said, that there are 43 communities within Westchester and 26 do curbside, leaving 17 that do side and back. Scarsdale in their 2017 report said it was 13 that did side and back and 26 that didn't. But in any event, I would guess that, like Scarsdale and Larchmont, that the communities that have retained this service are the higher tax paying communities. I'd be interested to see the study, if there is one, on the comparison on that issue. The reality is we pay a tremendous amount in taxes, and people expect really top flight services that can be offered. And this is just a small item, which it sounds like would not really be much of a tax save, would not be much of a savings, that enriches the lives of the people in our community. And to take it away now, particularly at a time when so many people are dealing with so many difficult issues through COVID, to add this one other point on top. And frankly, to some people, I think view this as kind of in the dark of night when nobody's even able to come to a meeting in person. I just think is the wrong thing to do. I really encourage all of you. Listen, I appreciate the posting that was put up of the slide deck, but it pales into comparison. I don't mean to make this Scarsdale versus Larchmont. I just happened to Google and find this 2017 study by Scarsdale, and it's an analysis and work that was put in before a decision was made. And that kind of analysis and thought, I think, needs to go into something that's been in place in this community for 40 years and that people just don't want to see go away. The last thing, the last thing I would mention that Mr. Altieri also mentioned was, when we're talking about costs, and I heard him say, and I think I got it right, that our workers' comp insurer wants to know, once we've made the decision, they'll let us know how that impacts our rates. I would imagine that should be something that if we're going to make a decision based on cost, we should know what the differential is today. Because making a decision, I really haven't heard a particularly compelling reason to make this decision, frankly, again, on no notice to our community. And if there is such a compelling financial reason, let's hear all about it, because I would tell you.
Sir, we have hit the 2-minute mark, just to let you know.
10 seconds and I'm done. Notwithstanding, the fact that not one of you really has made a counterpoint on this call, I will tell you anecdotally, to speaking to my neighbors and those that I know throughout the community, have lived in 3 different places. I haven't found one person yet who seems to be in favor of the removal of the side and back removal. The last thing I would say from an environmental perspective, and I understand that some people in the environmental committee are in favor of implementing this change, the amount of trash and garbage swirling around our communities, that if we could limit that, to me, that has a major positive environmental impact on our community. With that, I'll cede the floor.
Okay. Thank you, David. Well, my name is Christine Manzi, And some of you might know my name from the past when I was the president of the Pine Brook Association for 10 years, in which time we were able to affect a lot of things that were wanted and needed by our community in the village of Larchmont. So we in the village of Larchmont have such a great track record with our people who run Larchmont, like our wonderful Lorraine Walsh. So we want to just thank her publicly. And my job tonight is to read to you just a few of the 500 comments that Wendy referred to that were made on social media by our neighbors, the people that you represent. So I will say their names and what they wrote, and I'll be done in 2 minutes. Michael Posen, Larchmont Gardens. With the level of property taxes being paid around here, I find this completely unacceptable. And by the way, there are lots of exclamation points in these writings. I must say, I called it when they stopped for COVID. I said, well, this will never come back. And maybe next year as a budgetary savings, we can all shovel the street in front of our properties after a snowstorm. It is also very unclear how removing this service would save any of us any money. Jennifer Bransfield from Larchmont. It is also an eyesore to have everyone's garbage on the curbs all day. I really enjoyed the convenience of having the trash picked up from the shed for many reasons. We pay a lot of taxes and backyard pickup is a perk. Paul Burston, Larchmont. For someone like me whose children are no longer in the school system, the backdoor pickup is a perk that I really appreciate. Not getting too much bang for the buck otherwise. MJ Mitchell, Larchmont Manor. I agree that the sanitation men are the best and they deserve our full cooperation. We live and pay heavy taxes in a beautiful village/town. Let's keep it that way and not litter it with emptied stray, especially in windy, stormy weather, garbage containers. Lots of exclamation points here. Therefore, side yard pickup is essential. Ileana Dunn. The amount of taxes we pay are extremely high. We pay village, town, and school taxes higher than many municipalities. Also in bad weather, it's often dangerous for seniors like myself to drag our garbage pail and 2 recycling bins to the curb. Collection has always been part of the function of our village sanitation department. Or am I mistaken? Glenn Davino, East Boston Post Road. COVID-19 was a great excuse to cut back on service we pay for. I hope they will be cutting back on the tax bills also. Meg, Village of Larchmont. That's what part of our taxes go for, sanitation. Stop trying to change our little village.
Ma'am, we did pass 2 minutes, just to let you know.
And end up rolling away. We are not the city or a borough. Will they lower our taxes if they change the rules? Nope. And as you know, there are many, many, many more comments that you could look at on Next Door Neighbor. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just a word to those out there. I know social media is a powerful tool, but this, first of all, the proposed change to this law was made public, and that's why we're having a public hearing. It was not hidden from anyone. It was widely discussed. It was posted. And here we are having a meeting. And I would think it's pretty easy to join a Zoom meeting, much easier than to put your pants on and come to a live board meeting at night in one of either the town hall or the village hall and wait for your turn to speak. So we all see the social media comments, but direct emails or participation in a public hearing is the way to make sure that your comment becomes part of the record. And that goes just to the folks who were on social media and not on the meeting, not to Chris, who made it to the meeting, and the others in your group who joined you.
I wanted to just follow up on a couple of comments there as well, let people know that Steve Altieri mentioned that 26 municipalities in the county have curbside pickup. That doesn't mean that the remaining 17 have backdoor pickup. Many municipalities provide no garbage service in the county.
Supervisor, could I just mention one other thing? I just want to
Yeah.
point to the mention of the Scarsdale study. Scarsdale's collection program is dramatically different from ours. They use a series of mechanical, they're called Cushmans. They're a series of three-wheel vehicles that are used to collect the garbage. When they were considering curbside, it really was garbage. They were also considering curbside for some other materials in that study. So, you know, we have a lot of familiarity with Scarsdale. I actually used to work in Scarsdale in another time. And so those Cushmans were brought in as actually a way of reducing staff and maintaining curbside and maintaining backdoor garbage collection. Those vehicles, though, are very expensive to operate. And so, you know, we'd have to do a complete reconsideration if you wanted to reduce staff and implement backdoor and continue backdoor collection. I would also tell you that even with, I don't like to throw stones at my former employer, but I must say that even with the Cushmans, the village does not collect commercial garbage. Also, it operates with 6 additional staff that the commission does not have. They have 26 in their sanitation department. We operate with about 20 or 22. So there are some significant differences in that between the town and the commission and the village in their operations for sanitation collection.
We also, I just have to mention that we all know that the taxes are extremely high here. We're all residents here. So of course we all pay high taxes as well. Your taxes are collected by the town and by the village, but we do not keep all of those taxes. Please remember that, you know, 50% of those taxes go to, or 60% go to the school district. 20% of those taxes go to the county. So for all the services you receive from your local government, not just garbage pickup, but every other service, you know, it is about 22% of your entire tax bill.
So let's move to the next speaker. Lindsay?
Yes, we have Michael Posen.
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. I didn't expect to be my social media post to be quoted, but yes, that was me. I will like to dial into just one aspect of this, and that's with regards to the full-time employees and the hours that they work. Let me first say that, I mean, we love our garbage crew. They're part of the neighborhood. I have nothing against them. They do an amazing job. Steve, you had mentioned that the commission for many years has gone by the approach to let them skip their lunch and skip their breaks and get their route done and be done with their day. And then you said they usually get their route done in 3-4 hours time. I assume these people, these 20 people we're talking about, are FTEs. They're full-time employees, right? That
all of the collection personnel are considered full-time employees. Yes.
Right. So they're full-time employees working about 50% of a full-time day and being allowed to leave. Now, of course, there's credit time for if they skip lunch and things like that. I think that the math gets a little fuzzy when we start talking about letting these guys rush through their work, let them leave, and then try and make a case for savings when, in fact, on the one hand, even workman's comp. I don't think that the carrier would like to know that the guy is allowed to rush through his job, risking potential injury because he's going to get the leave early. And secondly, you could probably run the system if everyone worked 8 hours a day with 3 guys on the truck, as opposed to 4 if they worked a full day, what they're getting paid for. My other comments I'm going to skip to make room for everyone else to talk, but they echoed the same about garbage, and we have raccoons when we leave our garbage room door open, and it's just a mess. So thanks for your time.
I mean, if I could just very quickly comment, I think to make that comparison to other municipal employees is a little unfair if you consider what the task is and the amount of work that they do in that period of time. And there are days where they do work full days and still don't take their lunch and coffee break. So I think when you're doing the work measuring on this, you have to look at the fact that most municipal sanitation departments operate on what they call the incentive. The other reason for that was that in most cases, people do not want to have their garbage, particularly in the summer, laying around all day long. So the fact of the matter is we get most of the garbage collected by noontime. So you have to look at the workflow to understand why municipal garbage employees have that incentive.
Okay, thank you. Is there another next speaker, Lindsay?
Yes, we have Michael Godfried.
Okay, hi, Michael.
Good evening, Supervisor Seligson, Mayor Walsh, members of the town and village boards. At the outset, I want to take the opportunity to thank the town administrator and every one of the employees of the Sanitation Commission for their reliable, top-notch, and unsung efforts, they are heroes, but they're unsung efforts for our community. I am in favor of changing the law to allow for curbside pickup instead of backdoor pickup. In the 23 years that we have lived in Larchmont, we have never seen the need to require others to move our trash from our garage to the curb. Furthermore, I believe every home on our street brings their trash to the curb. The gentleman who spoke earlier asked for a show of the compelling reasons for this change. $240,000 to $280,000 in savings from a reduction in labor costs through attrition and reduced workers' compensation premiums yields an 8% reduction on a $3.4 million budget. I read the $10 figure that was quoted on the social media, and that's just not a proper way to look at the savings, because houses are picked up, not residents. With the $240,000 to $280,000 savings, you have less people to do the job, a safer work environment, and the total cost of sanitation goes down by 7.5%. Laying the groundwork for transitioning our sanitation trucks to one-armed bandits, which will allow for even more savings and an even safer working environment for the sanitation employees. That's a compelling set of reasons, as you will find, for any public policy. If I may turn to the cost of sanitation. Almost 2 years ago, I decided to look at the annual budgets of the commission, the village, and the town. Much to my surprise, I learned that the average village resident was paying close to $1,080 per year in taxes for sanitation, while town residents on average were paying taxes of close to $725 for the same service, not the $635 Supervisor Seligson stated earlier, because that doesn't include the additional costs that are picked up by each respective municipality, and it's also has topics in there that is not right for discussion this evening. For tonight's purposes, we can agree that most, if not all, residents don't actually know what sanitation costs us, because there is no itemized bill and the numbers published are confused and confusing. So
We have passed 2 minutes, so you know.
all right, let me just finish. I'll try to go quicker. One measure to evaluate the service we receive is whether it is reasonable in functionality and price. I respectfully disagree with Councilwoman Katz's conclusion that the cost is favorable by comparison to the private sector. Don't get me wrong. I do believe it could be favorable and hope it will be sooner rather than later. But at this time, the website of Suburban Carting, a private carting company, offers Putnam County residents 3 possible packages, costing $29, $34.50, and $39.50 per month for basic once a week, basic twice a week, and premium service that doesn't include curbside pickup. Backdoor service under their plan costs an extra $15 a month, which is a 50% premium on the lowest package offered. When one looks at that data point, 2 things come to mind. The higher cost of backdoor pickup is real, and it is substantial. The rates also beg the question, why are some of us paying more than the price offered by at least one reputable carpeting company for comparable service in a neighboring county? I believe that the sanitation policies need to be reimagined and updated. As Supervisor Seligman stated at the outset, the commission started back in 1938 to allow for the bonding and administration of an incinerator that has been shuttered for decades. The rules that were established back then have to change. I, for one, am a believer in shared services, but unless you modernize the government's policies to mirror those that are being done in the private sector, your costs will not be competitive and the justification for a government-run sanitation function will perish. So tonight I applaud the step forward, but please do not rest on your laurels. Please set your sight on replacing the enabling law with a fabulous shared services agreement that puts the resources in place to oversee a modernization of this vitally important function. You can rest assured that the costs and savings will follow. Thank you for the opportunity to be heard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another speaker?
Yes, we have Ann Good.
Hi there. My name is Ann Good, and I'm a resident of the town of Mamaroneck. And I think in contrast to the last speaker, I am a proponent of the continued government service of sanitation. And I think that our sanitation department does a great job, and I'm very happy with the service they provide. And because of that, I'm disappointed to see it reduced. I think before we reduce the level of services that are provided to our community, we need to think about three factors. The environmental benefit to our community, which I do not see here. I know that you've talked about tying that backdoor pickup must end in order for curbside compost to be considered, but I don't see the connection between the two. And I encourage the collection of curbside compost, but I don't see the connection between ending backdoor to even explore curbside compost. The second thing to be considered is there an enhancement of an enhanced service to residents. I do not see that here. I see a diminishment of services. And the third is the economic responsibility that the policy change brings. And I don't see any significant savings here. And the savings that is there, I don't think is even an accurate representation of the percentages. I think that the leaf waste removal, the unbagged organic waste is not part of this budget line. It seems to be
Sanitation Commission, and just so you know.
It's done by sanitation or it's done by
No,
DPW?
it's not. It's done by the municipalities, the DPW.
Yeah, so it doesn't, when we say the total sanitation costs and there's a savings of 8%, the total costs of waste removal will be higher when you throw that number in there, so that the percentage reduction will be lower.
No, this commission operates a service, and this would be a savings of 8% to the budget of that service.
Yes.
Okay.
And there are other waste removal services that are not handled by the commission, that are handled by the DPW, that are not being diminished.
Additional service, the commission picks up organic waste between April and at the end of October. The organic waste collected by the town and the village is pretty much restricted to fall leaf collection. And then when the two communities encounter a storm, then the two highway departments would pick up larger waste like tree limbs and things like that. So the commission picks up household garbage, recycling, and organic waste.
And
so what's the cost of the town DPW collection of non-bagged organic waste, the leaf pickup?
For the town of Mamaroneck, it's about $64,000 a year.
Okay. So my questions, in that I encourage you to consider all three prongs: the enhanced services to residents, the benefit to the environment, and the economic responsibility of the community. And this doesn't hit two of those three prongs. So my questions are also, what other alternatives were considered? If all this does is, have minimal economic savings, what other alternatives were considered to receive those savings?
There really isn't much. To achieve the savings that I itemized earlier, there really are no other changes you could make to sanitation that would achieve those savings if you're intending to maintain any semblance of the same service.
Why? So this is a diminishment of services. So what other diminishments were considered to achieve those same savings? there was only one alternative considered?
Do you mean other municipal services or other sanitation services?
Other sanitation services, once a week, backdoor pickup on waste.
Once
I
a
mean,
week
like,
doesn't really achieve savings for the simple reason is at the end of the day, you will essentially pick up the same amount of waste. The idea here is that you move the waste from the rear of the home to the street so that it is easier to collect, and hence you need less staff to do it.
The compost piece, the household collection of compost, organic food waste.
You still have to have a crew to collect that. So again, it doesn't really, the concept is that if you go to curbside and you now can collect it at curbside, you may be able to add an additional service and still achieve the same savings.
Why, and I guess my final question would be, why are we not tying the diminishment of the backdoor service with the addition of the additional service? Why are you taking away a service and then saying we'll consider maybe later we can add something in its place? Why aren't we removing backdoor at the same time we're adding curbside compost?
Well, remember that the County of Westchester has only just begun their contract with Suburban Carting for the acceptance of food waste for composting. That's very new to the process, and we don't know exactly how that's going to work. The communities have only in the last last week received copies of the agreement, so there are still questions there. So that still needs to be worked through.
Would it behoove us to hold back on this change until we know what the county compost contract will look like? Like, why we were rushing into this change when we don't know the second half of what we're doing?
Well, I don't think we're rushing into anything. I think we're looking at a change in service that has been identified as saving the greatest amount of municipal funding for change. Whether we can then incorporate the food waste collection at the home into it, we're going to have to work through that with seeing how the county contract interplays with our day-to-day operation.
Because I think it would be much more palatable to residents if they weren't losing a service like they are now with side of the house collection, and instead they were replacing one service with another. That a lot of people value compost, and that it might be a wash on the service diminishments. And so it would be nice to do those at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Lindsay, is there another speaker?
Yes, next we have Peggy Herzog.
A reminder that we have members of this meeting that need to get to other meetings. So we really now do have to hold ourselves to the 2-minute limit, which we have not been very strict with, so that we can get everybody's comment in, since we have another 4 people signed up here. Go ahead.
Good evening. I appreciate the chance to talk to you, and I will be brief. I certainly understand the complexities of the budgetary considerations. I would like to bring your attention to the issues of seniors and disabled people, and also how some of our yards were established before with different zoning requirements. Personally, we have a very narrow driveway, which is gravel, and I have physical disability. I've had 3 back surgeries, and I certainly can't lift anything more than 10 pounds at the maximum. And I'm older now, unfortunately. So were my husband to be out of town, I wouldn't be able to carry the bin to the curb. And that will happen and has happened. And I think that were you to actually proceed with your plan, it might be worthwhile, and I'd ask you to consider the possibility of a modified plan where if somebody has some challenges, either because they're elderly or disabled or anything else that might interfere with the capacity to get a bin to the curb, that you would be flexible to accommodate that. And just a separate note is that we have a townhouse in Vermont, and there's a collection of compost there. By law, they've actually just insisted that everybody have compost bins. So we have, in a townhouse, and all the units have to bring their compost in. The wild animals, especially the bears, have been accessing the compost even more than ever, closer to more residents. And just want to bring your attention to the notion that if compost is on the curb overnight, that could be a increased danger with coyotes that are prevalent in our area. So I'm not sure that it's a substitute for a backyard pickup or even at the concession in any way. I think it's actually potentially more dangerous for our community if that actually is part of the plan for the town. So thank you for your time, and I do hope you consider both of the comments that I've made.
Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Yes, next we have Mark Manley.
Hi, Mark.
Hi, good evening. Well, thanks everybody for your time, and I'll keep it really short. I just wanted to mention that I live on Park Avenue, and arguably one of the windiest streets in the village, as it's very close to the shore. And I've really never seen a problem with trash or recycling or anything being blown around as people leave it on the streets. I go out about 3 or 4 times a day walking the dog, and I'm very interested in the recycling business. So I'm sort of particularly attuned and keen on watching people's, what people are recycling, et cetera. And so anyway, just a comment that in a very windy area, we're really not seeing much trash blown around at all around here. So just to put that out there. And love the idea of compost pickup, and would be completely happy with once a day trash pickup. We're a family of 5, and we can barely fill a trash can, once a week. So it would be fine for us. So as avid recyclers and avid composters, it's you're able to cut your trash down quite easily. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Colleen Van Valen.
Welcome, Colleen.
I'm Colleen Van Valen, and I'll make it very quick, but going last, I just want to say that I really do feel it's a tangible perk of paying the taxes, and that when you move to the community, the real estate agents definitely do use it as a perk. I talk it up. I mean, whether or not, it's a benefit. Anyway, but my real concern is I live right near the leather stocking trail, and the animals absolutely get into our trash. That's lovely that some of you have never had that problem, but since bringing out our trash, I have a very secure lid, and my garbage is often gotten into to the point that I can't bring it out the night before. Our trash often gets picked up around 7:30 in the morning. So if I don't get it out there, at 7:15, then we miss it because I can't bring it out the night before because it will be destroyed by the animals. Anyway, I don't like public speaking, so that's it.
Thanks. Colleen, can I ask you a quick question, even though you don't like to speak in public? Does your trash can have sort of a locking mechanism on it? Does it snap shut?
Yes, and it's very secure, and yet animals destroy it. I have multiple pictures of neighbors' garbages, and my trash ends up in the leather stocking trail because of it. And so I go and clean it up, but it's one who wants to pick up garbage that's been, eaten by animals. It's not enjoyable. So those days I just skip it, but it is a service. I mean, this is my second home that I've owned in Larchmont. I also grew up in Larchmont and had 3 houses in Larchmont that every house I lived in, we did the curbside. Not curbside. We did back of door, and it was great. It's a great perk of Larchmont, and I do think it makes the town pretty and all those benefits and tax reasons. But the animals really where we live is a real problem. And everyone's going on and on next door about coyotes. I have young kids. I don't want to attract coyotes to my backyard.
Okay, thank you, Colleen.
You're welcome.
We have one more speaker, I think, Doris Pat Smith, and then that will be the last speaker.
Hi, I wasn't going to speak, but all the comments about the animals getting into the cans, I had that terrible problem until I read that they don't like mint. And there are mint bags available, the tall kitchen bags and the can bags. And I switched to the mint bags and never had another problem. Now I don't have any food in my can because I compost. But until then, I lined the can with the black bag, and that just stayed there. And then I put my kitchen can was the white bags. ShopRite was the only store that had them. They don't have them anymore. I called the company that makes them, Mint X, and said, where can I buy them? And she said, Amazon. So I ordered them from Amazon. They're a little more expensive than the others, but that was it. And my can lid locked too. But that didn't stop the squirrels and the raccoons. They just chewed holes and climbed in. So I wanted to give that little bit of information. This was before we started to compost. When was that? 3 years? Almost 3 years?
Wow.
3 years ago.
So from the day we started, and that's my other point is, I have almost no garbage because everything is reduce, reuse, recycle, compost. So I have a can out every second or third pickup, and it's a little white bag, and it has wrappings that are not recyclable, basically. If I have something that is going to smell, I wrap it in plastic that's already in there and take it out. And it's wonderful. So when we started to have to bring it to the curb, I brought my little white bag out to the curb. Now I'm told I can't take the little white bag, although there's nothing that would attract an animal. I have to carry the can down my steps, and I'm sorry, Abby, that's not so easy. And my paper is in a wheel can, and that's awful for me to get down the steps. I do it. That's what you have to do. But if I bounce it down the steps, like the non-wheeled can, I break it. I break the wheels, so I can't. So I have to carry it. The problem with that is the paper's heavy, but the other one certainly isn't. I can't hold on to the railing. And I hear from my kids every day, hold on to the railing, Ma. You can't come downstairs without holding on to the railing. I'm carrying a can, not holding onto the railing. So for that reason, I would like to say that if it's only $10 on my taxes, I don't mind. It's not such a big deal. But if I could bring my little white bag out to the street, and I understand why not, because you can't have specifics. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. And when I moved in 50 years ago, we had 3 pickups a week, and had the same discussions because I was involved then. The same discussions about 20 in the 80s. We went to 2 days a week, and almost the same comments were made at that change, and we survived. That's it.
Thank you, Doris.
Thank you, Doris. Okay, Lindsay, are there any other speakers?
Not at this time.
Okay. So we have also received many emails from different people, different residents in the town of Mamaroneck, and all of those emails will and have been circulated to the town board members, and those comments will be on the record. We are not sharing them tonight, though.
No.
Can I just add though, somebody asked if we looked at other alternatives, and I think Steve, before COVID and everything, when we had a joint meeting, we looked at all different scenarios, and we did look at private carding as an option. And so I just wanted out there that this is not just the only option we looked at. This is sort of what we came down to.
Yeah, I mean, over the years, you're right. You're right, Abby. Over the years, we have looked at other ways of dealing with garbage collection.
I too didn't know you were required to put it in your can. I asked Steve that last week when I was looking at the law, because every once in a while I too would just bring the bag to the curb when I brought it out in the morning, and I didn't realize I was violating the law doing that too.
If at some point we go to a mechanized truck, we wouldn't be able to pick up a bag. We would need it in some form of a can, but it can be a small can. It doesn't have to be, you know, a large 64-gallon can or something like that.
Okay. Excuse me. Are any other comments from town board members or village board members at this point? I think we're going to take all this information. We're going to go back to our boards and discuss it. And then we will decide how to move forward, whether we continue to have another joint meeting or whether we make decisions on our boards with all this information that we have now. And we will certainly communicate out again.
So do we adjourn the meeting? Do we close the meeting? What do we do with the meeting?
I think we close this public hearing. We can certainly open it again if we need to. But I think we should close it.
I agree. I think we should close the hearing. And we will need another meeting, but not another hearing. And before that next hearing, I think it would be helpful for both of us to calculate the savings, because I think the numbers that have been represented in social media are faulty. So it'd be nice to know that we're working with, and I will calculate for the village, because the village
it's different.
Village tax portion that goes to sanitation is a significantly higher number than for the town residents, partly because of our assessed value and our, well, for various reasons. But it's not the $600 something that Mr. Altieri put out, which is for town residents.
Okay.
We'll have all those numbers for our next meeting. So we should make a motion to close the public hearing, and I'll make that for my board. I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing, rather.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I saw my two trustees' mouths move, but they're muted, so. Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Nancy.
Is there a motion from the town board to close the public hearing?
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So remember, if you'd like to communicate with the town board or village board, please write us an email. We said that we would keep this comment period open until Friday, which is October 30th.
Correct. And we'll let everyone know when we've scheduled a follow-up meeting on this topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I think we have to close our meetings as well. Is there a motion to close the town board meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I seek a motion to adjourn, to close the village board meeting.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, and thank you to everyone who came on tonight to give us feedback on this proposed law. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Good night.
Jane, I'll see you over
Good
there.
night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Come on.